This is Let's Talk Business with your host, Marc Ebinger. Now, here's Marc.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Business podcast. Coming up on the show today, we're going to talk about emotional and leadership challenges that often hinder business success and how a unique approach can equip leaders with the skills and confidence they need to lead effectively. In studio with us today is Carlos DeLeon, founder of Delxico Consulting, who has years of experience helping businesses optimize their operations and scale successfully. Carlos has been recognized as one of the top 15 coaches in San Antonio by Influence Digest, an online publication with over 1 million readers. Carlos, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Great
Good
to
to have
be
you here. Yeah. Good to have you here. I'm your host, Marc Ebinger, the owner of Kruka's Virtual Staffing, a company that recruits and staffs experienced overseas administrative assistants for insurance agents who need help with policy management, claims processing, and client communication. If you're curious about the most common tasks that virtual assistants are doing for businesses, head over to our website at krukas.com and grab a list of the top 20 tasks that VAs are doing for businesses like yours. The link is in the podcast description.
And I am Heather Boehme, a certified business coach and owner of Onset Professional Development, where we help overwhelmed and burnt out business owners gain control of their business through process mapping, coaching, and training. So if you are running around like a chicken with your head cut off and don't know where to start, reach out to me at heather@onsetprodev.com and we'll get some clarity on how to start making a change.
And my name's Howie Nestel. I have been the proud owner of Sharkmatic Advertising now for more than 3 decades, an ad agency with 1 foot in the old school, 1 foot in the new school of digital and influence marketing. If you want to know what that is, go to sharkmatic.com, but reach out to us. And for the Let's Talk Business podcast listeners, 1 hour free marketing consultation with yours truly, Howie Nestel, valued at $5 million.
I was thinking $3 million, but whatever. I don't know who's pricing your stuff, but I might pay $3 million.
Yeah, but it's free. You get 1 hour of Howie time.
I get an hour every week.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you're getting a bargain, my friend.
I am getting a bargain.
You're getting a bargain.
I feel like very shrewd right now. I like this. Thanks, Howie. All right, a quick reminder to follow the Let's Talk Business podcast on all major podcast platforms and social media, where you can catch video version of the show, which is how I like to watch it back. You can get to everything easily from our website at satalkradio.com. So we had the Mega Mixer, week and a half ago or so. Great turnout, lots of fun. I can give you my perspective on it, but I'm a little biased. But Heather, let's start with you. You were there. You had a great time. I know you were interviewing people there. What was your overall feel of the Let's Talk Business Mega Mixer?
It was fantastic. It was a great turnout. There were lots of people there, lots of new people coming out of the woodwork, not the general crowd of networkers that you always see at every event. And that's always exciting when you're seeing people that you don't already know that you can grow your network and build relationships with.
Yeah, so the red carpet interviews that you were doing, how did those go?
I think the red carpet interviews went great. Indigo Films always does an amazing job of capturing what you're saying and putting you at the best light. And it was a great way to give people a chance to highlight their business in a way that looks really professional. You don't get that kind of content from normal networking events or ever. Really.
Or ever. I've been to a lot of networking events. I've never seen that where we have a professional video crew on the red carpet with a backdrop, and then the people who get interviewed by one of the co-hosts gets the content for free. And then we put it up and promote it, and we have 28,000 subscribers on YouTube alone.
And the implied authority of being interviewed. I mean, even though you're getting interviewed at a networking event, most of your Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, yada, yada followers are like, wow, they're getting interviewed. And that's really all they see, and they get to hear about your business. Most people are going to click audio on for those videos, and that's really valuable. It's like, oh, they're doing something interesting. What is this?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed and liked about the podcast Mega Mixer, and this is our now completed our 3rd one, is that we don't overhype it. We tell people it's going to sell out. There's going to be 250 people there. There's going to be, and it happens. It comes to fruition. I mean, we're hitting the numbers, and people are attending it. They are watching the podcast. They're doing business together, and they're creating. Every sponsor had people at their booth. There were people not lined up, 20 people deep, but 2-3 people deep, waiting to talk to each of the sponsors of the Mega Mixer. And then I actually brought some guests that wanted to do an event and they wanted to see how we did our event. Not a competing event. They want to do something for their industry. And they said, wow, you all knocked it out of the park. How did you all do it? I said, it's very complicated.
Talk to Mark.
Can't just tell you all our secrets. But I said, start hiring some of the people that helped organize it,
Yep.
and then get on the podcast and then promote it and all that stuff. But, it's what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do you get the followers first and then create great events? Or do you create great events and build followers? I mean, I think we've organically grown this to a lot of local support simply because the people who participate get value. If they didn't get value, they would not be sponsoring it. It wouldn't sell out in terms of number of tickets. We also raised a lot of money for Gotcha Cover, the collection drive I've been doing now for 28 years. So the co-hosts will go out and do some shopping for children at the Battered Women and Children's Shelter and Haven for Hope with the money that we got from the Mega Mixer. So overall, man, win-win.
Yeah, I love it. The charity component of it is pretty cool, too, that we're able to pay everybody that needs to be part of the production, but then also give back to charity, too, and significantly is pretty cool.
People want to know that they're going to gain benefit and also give benefit. So it's not that they wouldn't show up if all the money was going to line, the Let's Talk Business podcast coffers, but it's very nice that people pay depending on when you buy your ticket. So for the next one, buy it early, $15, $20, or $25, you end up having to pay more at the door, but that the proceeds go towards a nonprofit, a worthwhile nonprofit here locally. So it feels good to do that. You don't mind paying because it's going to a good cause.
Now, Carlos, you were a sponsor at the event, so you've got a different perspective, right? Because you were invested to go out, be a part of what's going on, and then also doing a little bit more focused business there. How was the event for you?
The event was fantastic. So this was my second event. I actually attended the second one would be, your second one, but just as a visitor. And I know, honestly, I'm not a guy that likes networking. You would be surprised, but I don't. I don't find it, I don't enjoy the process, but I know the importance of it and the value of it. So the value you put to these events is really what drives people in the door. As aside from the good cause that you do it for. But this time as a sponsor, I completely enjoyed it because I didn't really have to do the networking.
The people wanted to come network with you. Yeah.
But to me, it's like, that's how you do it, right? So that was fantastic. I made a lot of really good connections. But as I was responding to somebody, they asked me how was the event, or did you get any leads from the event? And I go, well, it's what you do after with the information is the key, right?
You must be in coaching or something like that.
Yeah, right. It's all about the follow-up, right?
Yeah. It is extremely important.
I think the know, like, and trust factor has a good chance of going up quickly when you're a sponsor at an event, especially if it's a good event and you represent well, which I think you and your wife did a great job over at the booth. It looked like you guys were having fun. I saw some photographs.
We did. It was great. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got to convert down the road, that's the follow-up stuff. And, continual brand recognition, continual top of mind. This is where the content is going to help you kind of continually capitalize on that message that you were giving out there at the event because you can post and remind folks, hey, this is what's going on. Did you have like a connection campaign or anything like that going on there, or are you doing that in follow-up?
I'm doing that in follow-up, but I did have a barcodes on my banner that you can just subscribe to my small business community, and also to schedule a free consultation with me. Yeah. And it was good. I've been booked ever since.
Great.
So,
love that. All right, Carlos. So let's get into the meat of the show. I want to kind of start with your background. I know you're in coaching and leadership is kind of like that's your passion, but tell us your background leading up to that.
So, I spent many years in the corporate world, specifically in the manufacturing and operations, and even more specifically in the medical device manufacturing. Worked for this company for almost 25 years, and the last 15 of them were in high positions. I was VP of operations, supply chain, manufacturing. So I got to do it in several countries, to start operations in different facilities. So that's really where the seed was planted. I started my coaching in 2016, and it was more like a consulting. That's how I started it. And it's kind of morphed into the coaching space in the last 3-4 years. Really what I do is I teach business owners how to run their business without them. Ultimately, that's what I do. So most coaches specialize in one area. I look at every single aspect of your business. So either from your startup or from your financials all the way to your customer experience, and anything in between. And through that process, you know, the leadership part kind of was born from it, because every time you go into a business, and I'm sure you guys know this, is that a lot of times the problem is not technical. The problem is leadership. The problem is that the leaders are not being trained properly. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to feel about it. They don't know how to talk to people. So about 3 years ago, I developed this training course that is specifically targeted to brand new leaders. So anybody doing that transition from peer to leadership. That's really the focus of my training. And that's where I found my happy place, my passion.
Do you think that in order for somebody to be a good leader, there has to be foundational ingredients there? Or is it something that anybody can learn to be a leader, which I don't buy that for a minute, but I'm going to ask the question anyway.
Leading the witness, objection.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Overruled.
Yeah. So my opinion and my experience is that everybody can be a leader. But that doesn't mean everybody should be a leader. It doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader. And that's okay.
Are you talking about effectiveness now? Because they can be in a leadership position and still not be, really effective.
Correct. Correct. So
and a leader's not really a position anyway.
Right.
It's not an appointed title with pay.
Can be. I got lieutenants on the police department that would beg to differ.
Yeah.
That's an appointed
Well,
position.
see, that's the thing, though. I think being a good leader, like you can be appointed to be a leader, but a good leader, they may not be a natural leader. There's naturals that are
See, I think
just naturally
natural
good.
leader is a natural ability to lead. But if you're appointed a position that would put you in a hierarchy higher than people who are obligated to follow you based on rank, I don't think that should qualify as a definition of a leader. A leader, to me, implies that you have people that maybe are getting paid to follow you, but follow you because they want to follow you and because you're providing good leadership.
Well, that's true
but
leadership.
Not true leadership.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. I think almost anybody could become a true leader. They just have to want to and learn to, especially if they're not naturals at it. You got those people that charge to the front and want to try to take the lead on everything, and they probably find it a little easier to
Well, they got to
lead.
want it because, like Carlos, you mentioned, you're not really into networking, right? It's not something you naturally want to do. There's people who don't want to be leaders. They don't naturally want to do that.
I think, but look, my experience, I like the way you said in my experience.
That's a Howieism.
That's a Howieism. Because people always say in my opinion, and I'm like, yeah, your opinion, although interesting, is somewhat irrelevant. Yeah. But your experience, however, I'm like, now I'm listening.
Yeah.
My experience tells me, because while I'm not a business coach, I've talked to a lot of people about leadership and had discussions around it. I used to think everybody wants to be a leader. I think most people don't want to lead.
That's correct.
It seems like, hey, just tell me what to do. Go to any event, committee, board, and wait till the CEO asks a question and just see how few people are going to answer, because you put yourself out there, right? That's the thing about leadership. You're vulnerable, you're exposed. You may or may not have followers. Nothing worse than being a leader with no followers, because all of a sudden you look back, you're holding up the charge flag and there's nobody there.
Nobody's following.
So when it comes, so you get hired to coach somebody, you get into this leadership space. What are you looking for to know that you're going to be successful? Let's start there. We can always move into the success of the person down the road, but what are you looking for as a starting point?
So what I do is I dig deep on the emotional and mental state of the person. And that's really what, to me, makes the difference. So, right. So you can buy 100 books and teach you how to be a leader, and there's many really good books out there that you can just go and grab and say, I'm going to do this. But the problem is that nobody tells you how to feel now that you have to lead people. And that is where I find the problem. So what I do is I dig deep. I want to know your emotional state, how you are with your family, your hobbies, your state of mind. That way I can tailor and use that information to grab and to make you understand and feel what it is to be a leader.
Why is that important, though? Why is it important that somebody you're training understand that they need to feel that?
Because that's the only way people are truly going to follow you.
So I think that led perfectly into my question, was, do you find a lot of resistance to that?
Yes.
Why are you putting your name?
Yeah.
He's like, why?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The reason why I'm asking the why is because I want to understand, and also there's people out there that watch that are like, hey, why does this even matter, right? Tell me what you can tell
leaders
me.
are not supposed to have feelings anyway. You're supposed to be strong and lead and don't complain and don't
Well,
tell
that's the
other
thing.
people,
It's like-
don't be vulnerable, don't show your emotions. But what I think what Carlos is saying is if he, as the coach, can dig deep a little bit and start to understand the emotion behind it, then he can actually coach them into becoming better leaders.
And that's the thing, though. I feel like a lot of people will hire coaches to fix a problem. And then when you start going into the emotional side, which is probably a big part of the problem, they're like, oh, nope, that's off limits. No, we don't need to talk about that. That doesn't have anything to do with my business. That's, a lot of the resistance that shows up when you start to dig there. So do you see that come up a lot? And if so, how do you handle it?
I do see that come up a lot. And I give you the example. So you're a dad, right? Mm-hmm. You're already a leader. And what you do and how you say it, your body language, the words you use, she's watching. Okay?
That's exactly right.
So-
and I was like, why do you have to say it like that? Because that's how I say it. She's mimicking. Yeah.
That's what it is. So now that you're a leader, you have to understand the power your words hold. And everything you say and everything you do, people are watching. And they're going to decide whether to follow you or not, or whether to believe your message or not. That's why it's so important to get that. So if I can dig and find your true passion, I'll be able to help you kind of use it to become a better leader.
And Carlos, when people that you're coaching and you get, let's say you said you go to every aspect of the business and you get to the leadership portion of it, right? And then you see some resistance and they don't want to go down that path. They want to do all the other things. Is it possible to have a successful business that can run without the CEO or the owner if those people are not only not leaders, but don't want to be leaders? Could you still coach them?
No, it's not a long-term sustainable success. It'll be a short-term success. The business will still go on. The business will still thrive, but with limits. They limit themselves to the possibilities of where they can take their business to. Once they're their own block, as I call it, because if the leadership starts from the top, it's very easy to trickle down. But when you find resistance there, it's harder. It's harder to do. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to say again, in my experience, it has happened maybe twice.
Okay.
So that's the thing. Do you lead in with like fixing the business, or do you lead in with leadership so that you aren't running into that resistance and they've already recognized it when they start working with you and they know that's going to be a part of the process?
That's part of the discovery call. So I do a lot of digging. Whether I'm going to take you on as a client or not, that has a lot to do with it. It's because if I see you so resistant to the point where, and you usually can tell that those people that have a hard time with change, no matter how small the change is, those are going to be very hard to coach. So at some point, either through conversations, you're going to have to be very honest and say, I really can't help you. I'm not the coach for you. And that's okay. I mean, more power to you, or find somebody that you will listen to. But unless you change this, unless you see that the person in the mirror is the one blocking you, nobody can help you.
Well, beyond that, what do you think are, obviously that's a quality you're looking for, somebody who can self-reflect and they're open to information and change, right? Because that's the whole purpose why they're hiring you, is because they want to affect some kind of change to lead to a better outcome. What are some of the other traits that you're looking for, or that a good leader should have in order to be effective in a business?
Effective delegation and decision making. Don't overthink everything. That's usually what happens. When you find somebody and you start talking and they're like, oh yeah, I can do this. I'm making a decision quickly. Just give me the information, I'll make a decision. Those are key. you know you're going to be successful. You know they're going to absorb everything you give them.
Okay, why is that so important as opposed to let's just slow down and let's think this through? And those kind of people drive me crazy, by the way, but the slow thinkers. But there's people that would argue that that's actually a good leadership style. But why are you saying that you're not saying that it's not, but why do you prefer the fast decision making?
I prefer it myself because they're going to see the results faster.
No.
The other kind, I still work with them. It just takes this lower pace, small wins throughout the process. But
Are you saying you're looking for an agreeable person?
No.
With respect to your coaching? Because that's different than, having good leadership qualities.
Somebody who can make decisions quickly and not second guess them and go back and reanalyze it, and then he has to recoach them. The reason I'm very familiar with that is it might surprise you all. I am a slow decision maker. I'm not on the bell curve. I'm not on that top 5 or 10, 15%. I'm closer to the middle forward, but I want to at least see a few people get eaten by the lion first to know that I'm not going in there. I'm not lining up for the next iPhone or the next Android. Let me wait and see. Let them get all the kinks out. I'm not getting the new Corvette until a couple years in. Mm-hmm. Also, because I want to save some money, get a used one.
That's the truth. Yeah.
But I understand that. And it's not that we're bad leaders, but if you're on the other side of the bell curve and paralysis from too much analysis, then what happens is you don't make a decision. You're right. You don't get results for a long time. And then when you finally make the decision, you start saying, oh, I wish I had made that decision sooner. Carlos, I wish I had listened to you a couple years ago when you first told me. And Carlos,
or you're already behind the 8 ball and someone else has stepped in and done it already, right? It's like speed to market, speed to action.
And
you do it now.
And the key to me here is where the emotional aspect comes from into play. Because now if I identify somebody that is a slow thinker, slow decision maker, I want to know why. I want to know what happened in their lives, in their past, that made him like that.
Right.
And if I can find the trigger, then I can put it in front of them. Now they can make a change.
Well, give me an example of a trigger that would cause somebody to be slow in those decision-making processes.
Fear of failing. So they fail quite a bit when they made a quick decision that kind of froze them for the rest of their life. So that could have happened in high school. That could have happened in college where they try something and they fail miserably and they were so scared that now that defines them. And until you kind of bring it up and put it on the table and say, look, you own your own life now. Nobody else. Nobody else owns this. You get to make that decision from here on.
Sounds like there's a little business psychology going on.
It is. Unfortunately, obviously I'm not going to call myself a counselor or a psychologist, but you have to use a lot of that. I'm sure you guys have done this where you have to kind of dig into their why.
But we have, business owners, probably more so than employees at companies. You worked for corporate, I worked for corporate back in the day. And it seemed like there was a system or somebody to go to for everything. If there's a problem, there's somebody who can help you fix it. When you're an entrepreneur and you make your own decisions, the consequences can be pretty severe. So you want to sometimes approach cautiously. But not making a decision is making a decision to do nothing, and usually that can't be fixed. Making a wrong decision and then adjusting and fixing it is usually better. So making a faster decision is usually better. Not always. And most decisions are not catastrophic.
Correct.
But when you're in high school and you made that decision to go ask that girl out and she turned you down in front of all your friends, now it's going to make you.
Thanks with you.
There's something there. We should dig into that for a minute.
No, I'm saying that it happened to a friend of mine. And he never got over it. He never got over it.
Yeah. He's single even today.
But that's the thing. I feel like behavioral psychology comes in leadership. Like you are leading people and understanding the psychology of how they behave and why they do the things they do is important when you're leading employees and staff. And then as a coach, it's important to understand that from the entrepreneur side because the same stuff affects entrepreneurs as affects staff. They just may be a little bit more conscious about what they're trying to do because
So
leaders.
here, I'll poll you guys. So you were talking about the lieutenants in the police department. Would you consider most of them to be popular among the rank and file or not popular?
Well, it depends on how you define popular.
Did people like them? Did people want to go to them for leadership, or did they listen to them because they had to?
It's mostly they're listening because they have to, but then they want to be liked by the lieutenant because, obviously
Right.
they don't want their life to be difficult. So there's a lot of this, placating, you know what I mean?
But
that
my
goes
point is
on.
that there's some animosity sometimes between the follower as how they perceive the leader. I don't think, what's your opinion? Are leaders generally popular and everybody likes them?
We're literally in an election year.
Correct.
No.
Right, no.
Are you kidding
Right?
me?
So that might be one of the reasons why there's a resistance to being a leader. I don't know the exact quote, but I don't get all my news from TikTok. But there was something that was attributed to Bill Gates that said, as a leader, if you want to, he says, if you want to be popular, don't lead. If you want to be popular, sell ice cream.
Yeah, I
Well,
just
it's
saw
just
that
like
recently.
parenting.
On LinkedIn, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like parenting. If you're popular with your kids, there's a high likelihood that your kids are not going to turn out super great. Your job isn't to be popular. It's to lead them on the right path and make sure they're set up for success and put the bumper rails on and let them make mistakes, but that aren't catastrophic, so that they become the type of people who can go out into the world and then be your friends. But if you're trying to be their friend, if I'm trying to be my 4-year-old's friend, I'd feed her ice cream all the time. She'd love it, but she'd probably be a total
Right.
brat.
I think, though, that if you're effective in what you're doing, that you'll attract quality folks and you can lead from that position.
True.
It's not necessarily a like or dislike. It's like they respect because you're effective. That's been my experience on the police department. It was, if you had a lieutenant or a sergeant or whatever, captains are completely irrelevant, but a lieutenant or a sergeant that was good at their job, they made good decisions because they had good experience and they still were close enough to the work that they understood what a good decision was, then they would inspire people to do great in their job. But that's rare.
Yeah.
And I'm a CEO. I lead a team of 5, and it's inspiration, but I treat them well. So I have no fear of leadership at all. I'm having actually a hard time identifying with what you guys are talking about. Even when I was on the police department, I didn't have an issue with leadership there.
Here's a good exercise you all can do. Ask your employees, if I was to leave somewhere else, would you follow me?
I've actually
Or
had
ask,
that happen before.
yeah, or ask, or
You've
ask.
been asked that?
Yeah.
No, I've had that happen before where
Oh.
I left somewhere and somebody else just quit
Oh.
Yeah.
and left with me.
That's the ultimate compliment. Will people follow you no matter what?
I had so Abby, she's my HR recruiter, just had a conversation with her. She's like, Mark, can I tell you something? And I'm like, because we were having a one-on-one conversation. And she said, she's like, basically, I'll just summarize that, or paraphrase, that she's like, I would never leave unless I was fired, because she really likes there was an incident that happened and I had her back. Of course I had her back, in a situation like that. And she just really was profoundly affected by that. It was a really good thing for her. So yeah, I mean, that is a good thing. But again, I want to go back to this fear of leadership thing. I seriously don't understand where y'all are coming from.
Can I know you're the guest, but can I take a stab at it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we all went to high school and we all had teachers, right? And there was one teacher, almost universally, we've all had this teacher. We came into their classroom and everybody really didn't like them because they were tough. They made you do what you wanted to do. But usually by the end of the year, all the students loved that teacher because they were fair. They made you learn. They didn't treat anybody unequally. And they ended up getting voted like best teacher of the year. And they always do. I had like 2 teachers like that. Very tough, very fair, but they got stuff done. Then the opposite. They're the teachers that are very lenient. Their classroom's like a party. They let kids order in lunch. They're trying to be part of the group. And everybody loves that teacher.
But you didn't learn anything.
But you don't learn anything, and they have their favorites, and you might not be one of them. So like, it's easy to be in their class, but you can tell they like the popular kids better, and so you leave the class knowing that you're not one of their favorites. And so there's some people that are like, yeah, this is awesome, and some people are not. So it breeds resentment in the class because you know that teacher has favorites, and they're probably grading their stuff lenient, whereas yours may or may not be. And so it just doesn't breed a cohesive group of people that are all on that teacher side. Some are their favorites, but some are just like, meh, whatever. Whereas the tough but fair teacher, everybody's on their side. They treat everybody equally, so we all vote them best teacher. And I think that's the difference, is some people see leadership as, I'm going to try to get everybody to like me. I'm going to be lenient. I'm going to be on their side. But really they end up, it's not something conscious, I think, when they're not great leaders.
To me, that's weakness. If you're going into leadership because you need to be liked, that tells me you're weak.
But that's the thing. It's what not all leaders that want, like, it's the people that want power sometimes shouldn't have it, right? They want to be liked. They want to be in charge, but they may not have that strength of will, strength of character, that fairness to be good leaders. Whereas some good leaders are forced into it and they don't really want to be there, but they're going to do the best job they can.
Well, I'm going to take off on what Mark said earlier, but if you're a good, strong leader and you deliver results, the right people will follow you.
Yeah.
Not everybody. You want the right people following you. Yeah. It's the same thing about adjusting to try to get people to like you. If you don't adjust for the people that you want to have like you and you do your thing, the right people will love you. That's what you need.
Well, and leadership isn't about the individual. It's selfless. So it's like, I equate it to public speaking. Public speaking is not about me. If I'm the public speaker, right? It's not about me. It's about the people in the audience getting whatever the message is. You're not there for yourself. You're there for them. Same thing on leadership.
But the examples you're giving are perfect. But that doesn't mean that you can't have both. And that's where people are wrong, in my opinion, because you're making them either you're liked or you're not, or you're hated.
Yeah, I agree.
It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be.
But that's the thing. I feel like
I'm on your side, Carlos. That's why I'm sitting here.
It doesn't have to be like that, because you can be liked and respected at the same time. You just have to know how to lead with empathy, but also fairness, and have accountability and control your emotions and guide people correctly and be empathetic to their lives. So those are the leaders. So you can have it both ways. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And that's really where you're trying to grab or to teach these new leaders. Because most of us go through that thing, and then especially us in the corporate world, where you got your first shot at a promotion to be a leader because you were a good employee.
So, Carlos, you worked in the corporate world, opened up manufacturing facilities and ran them in multiple countries. And then something happened. You don't have to share with us what. Okay. And then you decided to become a coach, trainer, consultant first, and then became a coach. Was there any fear in the transition between the corporate world and becoming self-employed, or as I like to call it, self-unemployed?
No fear whatsoever, and no regrets whatsoever, because I did it for the right reason. I reached the point in my career where I ended up working for this horrible human being. And I tried my best, because throughout my career, I'm very proud to say that every position I had, I never applied for it. It was given to me because early on, people discovered that I could bring teams together and I could accomplish something by bringing people together. When I had this person to be my boss, and he was so demeaning and degrading to people, and just the way he spoke to people, it was horrible. And I confronted him. I coached him. I tried to, and we would be in the room, and he would look at me and say, "You're right, Carlos, you're right," and bow his head down. And he says, "I'm going to change." And a week would go by, and he was doing okay, and then another explosion. And people were just leaving. And I can tell you, the day I left, I couldn't do anything. I felt powerless. I said, there's no way. So I looked at it as, I'm going to sacrifice myself. If I leave, high-ranking position, been here for a long time, they're going to notice. Once they interview me on the exit, I'm going to tell them why. But everybody already knew why. But I can tell you, when I left, 19 people walked away the same day. 19 people left that day.
You can mention his name. This is called the Let's Throw Him Under the Bus podcast. So
share the chispa.
Yeah.
Chisme. Chisme is what it is. Chispa's a drink.
Chispa's a drink.
Now I have to get a margarita after this.
Yeah. Wow. That's so. But the argument could be made. You had no choice, Carlos.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So why would
Yeah.
you fear something where you have no choice? But now you could have gone and gotten another corporate job. Any fear about starting a business after having a cushy job for 25 years?
Just like everybody else, yes, I'm also human, right? So absolutely, there's fear. Absolutely, there's. But again, I mean, I'm blessed. I'm blessed because all I did was change my LinkedIn profile from VP of Operations to consultant. That's all I did. And a week later, somebody sent me a message saying, "Hey, I see that you have a lot of experience in medical device manufacturing. We need help. Can you help us?" Wow. That's how it started.
Sometimes, though, and then back to Mark's point, because, Mark is fearless, okay? Air Force and then police and, homicide of all things. Yeah. But for those civilians, when the second corporate job I had was after I had owned my own business for a while, and I decided to go work for my mentor. And I took a 3-year sabbatical from owning my own business. I didn't know at the time it was going to be a sabbatical. I just decided, I'm gonna go back to work because I really love that environment. I love this guy. So I went to work for him. And then when I left there, I spent 3 years there, and I was going to start my own business. I had no fear because I had already owned my own business and it was successful. But I had nightmares that I had started my business and I could not get clients because they were holding it against me that I had left 3 years before. So sometimes fear doesn't manifest itself as the physical while you're awake, but I might not have these recurring dreams that I couldn't get clients, that I was not successful, and things like that. So I guess that is kind of fear. Of course, you take care of that by having sales and, doing business. I do, if we have time, I'd love for Carlos to dive into this anti-networking stance he has, because we're all about networking. I mean, we talk about networking all the time.
But he's not anti-networking.
I know he's not. I just, for himself, I want to hear. I'm trying to agitate him a little bit. I want to see.
You're not going to rattle him.
No. Carlos, what is it about people that you don't like? No.
No. All right.
Wow, very direct question.
No.
So let's talk about, we talk about client acquisition, but how do you measure success with a client?
Really, when I see the transformation in their behavior, the sales and the success in the business, to me, there's a bonus. But seeing the difference that I can make in somebody's life because they become better people, better leaders, better husbands, better wives,
But is that how they define success in your coaching? Because, I mean, you're defining it that way.
They do because that has a lot to do with my coaching. So they kind of adjust to it and they see that and they truly enjoy the benefits even more.
Have you struggled at all with the intangibility of it? Like, obviously, there is significant impact, but it's a little harder to communicate when you can't say, or you don't want to say, I help someone earn an additional $250,000 in gross rep. It's just not as numerical.
Well, sales coaches talk about that. From your coaching experience, asking another coach, and I'll ask both of you, do clients sometimes have successes or wins that are not financial, not measurable in that way, but become better wives, husbands, become better nonprofit philanthropists and stuff like that, and then not attribute credit to the coaching?
Oh, I mean, they absolutely do. But for me, they generally don't want to talk about that in a testimonial. And I feel a little uncomfortable sharing that kind of stuff.
It's all on how you ask the question, right? I
mean, and that is very hard. And you're absolutely right. Because, when I asked them, could you kind of share a testimonial with me so I can use it? And they don't want to put out themselves out there.
They fixed my marriage, right?
Why don't we have a chat about the process, my coaching process, and how it impacted you? That's a different way to ask that question rather than let's get a testimonial from you. You know what I mean? That's a little like, oh shit, I'm going to be.
Let's have a chat about it and turn on 9.
Yeah, and I actually don't ask.
It's just between us and the 9 cameras.
It's not streamed live, but although we should.
But
think about
you know
that.
what I mean when I ask the question. Sometimes you help a client, and if it worked, they think they're geniuses. And if it didn't work, you're at fault because you're the one coaching them.
You're the one to blame.
Right.
So I use a combination. You have to show numbers. You have to show numbers. You have to show progress. You have to teach them how to look at this number because most of them don't know how to look at it. Most people you're coaching, you ask them, man, how often do you see your P&L? And they were like, what is a P&L?
So I have clients that don't want to share with me numbers to see how effective advertising campaigns are. And so we'll look at analytics and things like that, and we'll see that, more unique visitors on the website, more click-throughs, more phone calls. But they're not sharing conversions and how much money they're making. And so when my staff asks me, how do we know that what we're doing is actually effective? I say it's because they're still paying us after 10 years.
Yep.
Trust me when I tell you that if this was not working in their eyes, they wouldn't be paying.
Would have stopped. Yep. I completely agree. And that's really, I'm not sure how your coaching works, but I do like a monthly subscription type deal. I do 6 month and a 12-month program. But most of my clients stay with me for years because they want that emotional connection. They want to have somebody to talk to when something is going wrong, even if it is a personal matter. They want to have that phone call once a month and say, hey, guide me through this. And so they stay with me for a long time. So to me, that's a success in my own, but how do you measure that, right?
Oh, yeah, and I meant it more from the like new client acquisition standpoint, not so much from the retention aspect. Like when you are talking to someone about coming on as a coach, or do you really just work only like referrals? People come to you and they're like, please help me.
No, I do all sorts of marketing. I do, but coaching is not an impulse buy, right? They will not work with you unless they know you, they trust you, they like you. As simple as that.
What percentage of your clients are in the medical device space or even in the medical industry versus not?
I would say 20% now are in the medical device. Yeah.
We just had a lady on. She helps startups.
Yeah, you met her on the Thursday.
I met her on the Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah, you should network with her.
I will. It's very interesting what she does. I definitely want to learn.
Yeah, and she's smart too. Yeah. She had a great podcast. Definitely recommend checking it out. Yeah. So, collaboration with other coaches, is that something that you do?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. I don't see any other coaches as competition, even if they are business coaches. There's enough business for everyone, and we all kind of specialize in something. So we can help each other. We could grow together. So no, I never see anybody as a threat or competition.
Well, let's add that to the list, right? Every business needs a marketing firm. Every business needs a CPA. Everyone needs a business attorney. Everyone needs a bookkeeper, right?
Everyone should be on a podcast.
Everyone should be on a podcast.
And needs a VA.
Everybody should come to the Let's Talk Business podcast mega mixer.
Absolutely. I like where your head's at there, Howie.
Yeah.
checking things out.
All these things.
I highly recommend it.
One last question for Carlos.
Oh, last question.
From me.
Okay, I'm going to hold you to that.
Next 60 seconds. This is going to be my last. Startups. Okay, there's the philosophies. I don't really like startups because they don't really have any money, or they don't value what I do because they haven't banged their head up against the wall enough times. I like businesses that have 5 employees. I like people that have been in business for 3 years. Any stipulations on the type of clients you like to take on?
No, I help everyone. Startups especially, because they are left behind. So you kind of coach them on how to do it right from the get-go. If you can save them some money there, yeah, they're gonna come back to you once they're successful, because you teach them what not to do, right? Because I think we all made mistakes when we first started.
Do they have the money?
Do you find that they take your advice though?
Even if they don't, you did what you could, right?
You're planting the seed.
You're planting the seeds. And a lot of times, I'm sure you're no stranger to this, but most people that say, I have this great idea, I'm going to start my own business, and you see their list of items to do, nowhere in there says, I'm going to get a coach. Nowhere in there says, I'm going to get a marketing.
Yeah.
Nowhere in there
Nobody
is,
says, I'm going to pay sales tax.
Right.
Nowhere in there is,
Right.
They have none of that.
Right. So they don't put any money aside for the marketing, which is probably the most important part in a startup. So if you teach them, kind of give them a template of follow this. Don't ignore this, because if you ignore it, you're not going to be successful. You're going to crash and burn. You're going to waste all your money.
So you've got some international coaching experience or business experience. How does that help your coaching?
That's a great question, because when I first started doing that, it was really about my mentor who gave me all my opportunities. At that point, this company was buying a lot of smaller companies that would fixate on an item this company created, and they say, well, we want to buy it. They would go and buy the company, and then my job became go and see if we could implement our processes and our systems, and we can save it and make it profitable. If not, close it down, bring that product into one of our manufacturing facilities, and that's it. That really started planted the seed as the coaching, because anywhere you go, we're all humans. We're all after the same things. There's not much difference to us. We all want to live a comfortable life. We all want to have families. We all want to be, and that was the end of it. So it was great to see that no matter what culture you're working with, at the end of the day, we're all humans. We all want the same thing. So very proud to say that out of the 16 times that I did it, we only had to close one down. We save every single other one. So
now, from the international perspective, is it different to coach? Did you ever coach in Mexico? Because that's something I have experience with, not coaching, but doing business with clients from Mexico versus doing business with clients from the United States. And I see, yes, we're all humans, but we're in different parts of the spectrum when it comes to how to implement business strategy.
There's definitely differences, right? And you have to know what not only laws and regulations, but their systems or even cultural customs, right? Yeah. And yes, from Mexico, I would say 50% of my clients are from Mexico. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of big connection in Mexico.
Yeah. So if somebody's running a business and they're dealing with Mexico, or they need to make connection in Mexico, that would be good for you to help them with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a very large network of different types of businesses that could help many other businesses.
Mark, Crookus Virtual Staffing. So you hire VAs from other countries. Mm-hmm. When you bring those on with your clients here in the United States, is there some cultural interface that you have to do in putting your clients together with these VAs to get them to understand how it is to do business with somebody from another country?
We don't have any formal process, in place, but that's a good idea. It's just some cultural awareness.
Maybe even making a video about, just something about, let's say, the Philippines and where the people are from, why they speak English as well as they do.
And highlight some of the their more important holidays. It's huge.
Yes, we've done that for the Philippines.
Yeah,
we haven't done that for. Of course, there's a lot of countries in Latin America, but that is a good idea.
Yeah,
to do that.
Highlight what's important to them.
Because as Americans, we think that the only holidays there are the ones we invented, right? And everything revolves around English and our holidays.
Yeah, they're like, what's Labor Day? What's Veterans Day? Yeah. What are those?
Yeah, we don't know what those are either. We just know that we're going to be barbecuing and drinking
bank holidays, right?
Yeah,
watching football or whatever. Yeah. Carlos, if folks want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
So you can reach me through my website, delxico.com, or my cell number is 847-650-6972.
And spelled Delxico, sorry.
Delxico. So just remember Mexico.
Yeah.
Delxico.
We'll put a Del in front of it. Like for DeLeon, right?
Yep.
Is that where they came
from?
That's
where it came from, yeah.
All right, awesome.
Not too clever there.
Yeah, he used to be a homicide detective. You can tell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I was already thinking, why does he like Dell computers so much?
I was thinking, where the heck did that come from? Mark put it together in 2.5 seconds.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, in detective school, they would call that a clue. So that's how I put stuff together.
And that's why you and I are co-hosts.
Right. All right. Well, thanks, Carlos, for coming here. Appreciate the talk.
Thanks
As we wrap up the show, quick reminder, check out our latest podcast and catch a video version of the show anytime by visiting our website at satalkradio.com. It's going to be it for this one. You guys have a great week. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks for having me.